We arrived in Sevilla late in the afternoon. It was February, and most of the tourists wouldn't start to arrive for another month. The sun was setting and it was cold. I regretted bringing Alex here. We were tired from our drive across France and Spain. Our luggage had been stolen from our car the night before in Granada, and all our warm clothes were taken. I had lived in Sevilla for a year when I was 7, with my mother and sister. My mother told us we were going to Spain because she was thinking about divorcing my father. Sevilla was a kind of trial separation, she claimed. I didn't know what it meant to be without a father, to have a mother without her husband. I became more watchful and guarded, sensitive to my surroundings, wondering what was and what was not significant. There are no pictures of our life in Sevilla. My mother never owned a camera. My sister Valerie kept a journal. She made drawings with titles like "My First Attempt at Drawing Cloth" or "The Church Bell Towers" across from our apartment. I remember that year in Spain more vividly than any other. When my family returned home, we left Sevilla in the past. We never went back. Returning seemed impossible. In my mind, Sevilla became more like a time than a place. So I was shocked as an adult when it occurred to me that I could actually go back. Alex read aloud Washington Irving's Tales of the Alhambra while we drove from Granada to Sevilla.
They will gather around the doors of their cottages in summer evenings, or in the great cavernous chimney corners of the ventas in the winter, and listen with insatiable delight to miraculous legends of saints, perilous adventures of travelers, and daring exploits of robbers and contrabandistas. The wild and solitary character of the country, the imperfect diffusion of knowledge, the scarceness of general topics of conversation, and the romantic, adventurous life that everyone leads in a land where traveling is yet in its primitive state, all contribute to cherish this love of oral narration, and to produce a strong infusion of the extravagant and incredible. There is no theme, however, more prevalent and popular than that of treasures buried by the Moors. It pervades the whole country.
I thought of the gypsy family Irving had lived with in the abandoned ruins of the Alhambra while writing his book. The police claimed gypsies had stolen our bags. Gypsies have lived in the caves overlooking Granada's Albaicin for hundreds of years. They watched from those caves as Andalusia shifted back and forth from Christian to Moorish control over the centuries. Now I imagine them looking over the contents of our bags, trying on my new running shoes, pondering the names of our friends in Alex's Palm Pilot. Worst of all, they had stolen my journal of the past several years. I couldn't think about it. The more I remembered of what I had written down, the more it dawned upon me how many details I had forgotten. When I was a kid, we saw Kramer versus Kramer in London on our way to Spain. I felt terrible for the father in the movie, when the judge gave custody of the little boy to the mother. We also saw The Shining and An Unmarried Woman around that time. I remember feeling bad for the unmarried woman. I wondered if that's how it would be for my mother. I recently watched those films again. I had hoped they might fill the place of the photographs my mother hadn't taken of that year. Alex and I looked for a hotel.
However, these reforms provoked
It made me think of my arrival in 1979 with my mother.
crush this resistance.
We walked the same alleyways, checking all the hostels in our guidebook for vacancies. Franco's rule had just ended. Spain was just then emerging culturally from a time before the Second World War. My mother was just arriving from the 50s, having married and started a family before finishing school.
To crush this resistance, Franco would receive aid from Hitler and... However,
I suppose going to Spain was an odd choice for her, or a safe choice. A divorce that was a vacation that was a sabbatical from teaching high school English. My sister says our mother was just a phobic person confronting her phobias. If you'd ask my father now, he would simply say he wished he had gone with us. I remember my parents fighting, sometimes violently. So she left. It was scary, but exciting too. It must have been a relief for me not to have to listen to them fighting, and it seemed like every day was a holiday in Spain. I don't know if it was Franco's fall or just the spring. Everything changed. At that time, the Spaniards still heated their homes with bits of charcoal from the Carboneria. Laundry on rooftop clotheslines put the city in motion like a ship. Civil War veterans without legs, sitting on small pieces of dirty carpet, sold little green raffle tickets for the church. And next to them on the sidewalk were blind women with their arms outstretched, pleading in an incoherent language. And gypsy children would swarm around us begging for pesetas. I felt embarrassed to be with my mother when they approached us. My mother told people my father was dead, she says for simplicity. Then the Spanish men would tell me to be good, because now I was the head of the family. Once a stranger hit me on the back of my head for spitting in the street. He said he was only trying to help my mother discipline me. I developed a nervous stomach, and a doctor prescribed a diet of quince jelly and saltines. I wanted to find the hostel my mother and I had lived in for our first month in Sevilla. I recognized a nearby street and was able to take Alex right to the place. There was a new owner. The family I had known had moved to Australia. The place was empty, so we were able to get the same room that I had stayed in with my mother. I had remembered children playing in the halls, their mothers mopping the courtyard tiles and changing bed sheets, the courtyard full of flowers, filling the place with light, and the sound of trickling water from a fountain or a leaky faucet. Now everything was still. Everything was lifeless.